We want to thank you for being with us today. If this message has been a blessing to you and your family, we encourage you to make a donation to keep this broadcast on the air. You can make your donations by going to Bethesda ApostolicHouseofPrayer.com on our secure website, or Givelify app, where you can make your donation to keep this broadcast on the air. Please remember, your tithes go to your local church, but your offerings can go to where you're being fed. And as we continue on our journey, remember this. 2 Corinthians 5 and 7 tells us that we walk by faith, not by sight. Thank you. In triplets, amen. What a pleasure, what a honor, amen. Amen. We're going to find ourselves in the book of Samuel this morning, 1 Samuel. And I want to talk to you this morning about what's in a friend. What's in a friend? You know, history is replete with examples of people that we identify as friends. The critical question that you want to ask yourself, you want to ask yourself, who is my friend? Who is my friend? And we have great pairs of people. When I was a kid, the song used to be, Cisco Kid, he was a friend of mine. Oh, yeah. Cisco Kid was a friend of mine. Yeah, I drank whiskey, Pancho drank his wine. So remember that? So Cisco Kid and was friends, and we have many examples of Batman, Robin, Holmes, and Watson. I mean, you just got examples of people in history that you would consider they were good friends. And everybody wants a friend. You ever notice that everybody just, you crave a friend. And when you can find one, it's what we call a rare jewel. When you really find a friend, it's something special. It's something unique. It's something that it's a bond that exists. And today we want to talk about how to identify a friend, how to have a friend, and most importantly, how to be a friend. That's the component that centers everything. And then we're going to look at probably one of the greatest friendships in the history of mankind. And we're going to look at a friendship that was between two gentlemen who really shouldn't have been friends. These two guys shouldn't have been friends. And I want you to see that this relationship was knitted together in a special way. And I want you to see that special component. And as you start to identify who's a friend and you start to ask yourself how you can be a friend, I want you to see this critical element and this critical component. Now, to sort of bring us up to where we're, remember, Israel is fighting the Philistines, and Goliath is called out, wars, nobody comes in, and David does something. He goes out and he fights Goliath, this 19-year-old boy with no army experience, with no military experience. He goes out and he conquers this huge giant, and he becomes sort of a national hero overnight. Everybody is celebrating him. He's become almost the most popular person in the kingdom. And oftentimes with popularity and notoriety comes jealousy and envy. Oftentimes with popularity, notoriety comes, there's an envy and jealousy that seek. And so the king of that time became very jealous and envious of David, and all sorts of plots and plans to try to hurt him, and just at this most critical time. You see, it's the most difficult times, and it's a time not when you have the notoriety and the popularity. It's when you feel all alone and all by yourself, when you feel absent, when you feel desolate. That's oftentimes when you can really use a friend. That's when you can really determine who is a friend. See, not when everybody wants to be around you, when everybody wants to be a part of what you're doing, that don't determine who your friends are. It's when you're in that dark, isolated place, when you feel all alone, that's when you can really tell who a friend is. And there are many people, see, we call a lot of people friends who are just acquaintances. They're just an acquaintance. There's somebody that you might want to send a Christmas card to or get a Christmas card for, but they're just an acquaintance. And then we got people that are companions that maybe live next door to us or we work with. But a friend is something that's unique. A friend is something that you have a life relationship with. A friend is someone who you are bounded to, someone who you are connected to, and they're connected to you. A friend is someone that when everybody else leaves out the room, they come in the room. When you all alone, they will seek you out. They will try to find you because you and them have the spiritual connection, the spiritual bond. You see, we look at the idiosyncrasies and we look at the most unimportant things to classify a person as a friend. Because a person laughs with you, that doesn't necessarily mean they're your friend. Because a person goes out with you, that doesn't necessarily mean they're your friend. There are people who will lay down in your bed with you, and they are not your friend. Do you understand that? And let me just, there are girls that grow up together, and they hang out together, and they go and they have get-together parties with one another. They sleep in each other's house, and the whole time they're plotting to destroy one another. So just because someone is in your environment, that doesn't necessarily mean they are your friend. And we want to look at these characteristics of a true friend. And I want you to be able to see that there's certain characteristics of a true friend. There's certain elements of a true friend. And when you can find these characteristics and you can find these traits, you know you have a friend. And you know how you can know them? Because they're in you. And if they're not in you, how in the world can you expect them to be in somebody else? Think about that. Think about your character and your traits. And then when you look internally in yourself and you see who and what you are, then you can also determine what you're looking for in other people. You see, because the same measures that you use, the same standards that you use to judge, are more than likely the same measures and the same standards that other people use. But what happens with you and me, we start to think, well, no, because I think this way, they need to think another way. No, the world don't work like that. So what I want you to see, that friendship is a bond. It's about unconditional love. It's about unconditional commitment. It's about a bonding. It's about a yoking. It's about putting the other person's interests oftentimes above yours, which is not an easy thing to do. The hardest thing in the world is to put somebody's interests above your interests. That's the hardest thing in the world. Because we are by nature self-centered people. We want what we want when we want it. So if we are by nature self-centered people, and we want what we want when we want it, it's very, very difficult to put somebody else's interest above yours. Think about it. It's a hard thing to do. So we want to see this morning in 1 Samuel 18. I want you to get some idea of what a true friend is. You see, we have to learn how to love. And most importantly, we have to learn how to love ourselves. Now, I'm not talking about getting intoxicated with yourself. I'm not talking about standing in the mirror saying, mirror, mirror on the wall, who's the most beautiful of all? I'm talking about loving yourself. There's a difference in loving yourself and being in love with yourself. Let's look at this 1 Samuel 18 and 1. Now watch this. Now remember the story. Remember I told you Israel's been fighting. David goes out and David sort of beats Goliath. And I want you to see something that's very clear that you can see. Now watch this. Remember, Saul becomes very jealous of David. Saul sort of now wants to kill David. Now watch this. 1 Samuel 8 and 1. Now it came to pass when he had finished speaking to Saul, that's his father, then the soul of Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David. Now watch this. This is key. And Jonathan loved him as himself. You see that? You see that when you put someone else's interest above yours, when you love yourself, you see, you can't love anybody in this world. Listen to me. You can't love anybody in this world unless you love yourself. You can't be friends to anybody in this world unless you're a friend to yourself. So you have to know you, and you have to love you, not be in love with yourself, not be intoxicated with yourself, but you have to love you before you can share yourself with anybody else. Look what it says. Now it came to pass when he had finished speaking to Saul, the soul, the essence of Jonathan, the soul of Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David. When you knit something together, you intersect it. You see, most of the time in life, you're going to interphase. Interphase means that you may touch, but you're not bonded. There are going to be a lot of people. There are going to be many, many people that you're going to interface with. But there are going to be very, very few people that you're going to intersect with. That means they become a part of you and you become a part of them. That's rare and few and in between. So what the Bible tells us is that Jonathan was knitted to the soul of David. Knitted to the soul of David. He became tight, intertwined with David. He intersected with David. And watch this. And Jonathan, when you intersect with someone, Jonathan loved him as he loved himself. You see, Jonathan had to love himself first. You can't love anybody until you love yourself. So Jonathan could become a friend to David because he loved himself. His essence, he understood who and what he was. And when you understand who and what you are, then you can share. You can become knitted to someone else. You can intersect. Jonathan loved him as himself. So what I have, David, I want to give to you. So they were knitted together. And they came to realize that they loved one another and they gripped. Now ask yourself this question. This is the big question. Who in this world that you can love like you love yourself? Who in this world can you love like you love yourself? And if you can love them like you love yourself, then you have a friend. If you can love them like you love yourself, I'm not talking about your wife or your husband or your brother or your sister. I'm talking about outside of your immediate family. Is there anybody in this world that you can say that you will love them like you love yourself? Because when you can do that, when you can say, I am knitted to them, I love them like I love myself. When you can do that, then that friendship is unconditional. When you can do that, that friendship is unconditional. And what happens is that we have acquaintances that we call friends, and they are only friends when you can do this for them. They're only friends until you forget to invite them to the party. They're only friends because you can give them something. But Jonathan was knitted to David unconditionally. There was no acquaintanceship there. There was a bond. There was a deep-rooted bond. Look at verses 3 and 4. And I want you to see what happens when you get that bond. When you get that unconditional friendship, that's based on unconditional love, that's based upon your essence, something changes. Something not only changes in you, it changes in that person. Watch this. I want you to see. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. See, we have contacts. We have people that we're in contact with. We have people that we will even do a contract with that we don't even know. And we go around and say, well, I had a contract. My friend and I got a contract together. No, that's not a friend. That's an acquaintance. You see, when you have a friend, you have a covenant relationship. You have a relationship, speaking from a biblical perspective, where you will put your life on the line for that person. And that person will put their life on the line for you. That person is willing to give up everything to make sure that you're okay. And you're willing to give up everything to make sure that they're okay. Watch this. Verses 18, 3 and 4, 1 Samuel. Then Jonathan made a covenant with David because he loved him as himself. Now watch this. Jonathan stripped himself of the robe that was on him and gave it to David with his armor, including his sword and his bow and his belt. Now that's a covenant relationship. Let me just tell you why. Jonathan was submitting to David. He was giving up everything to David. Remember, Jonathan was Saul's son. Saul had been grooming Jonathan to be king. All of Saul's efforts, even disobeying God, was designed to make sure he can transfer the kingship over to his sons. So Jonathan, loving David like he loves himself, says, look, I am going to give up my armor, which symbolized that you're going to be the future commander-in-chief. I'm going to give up my belt. I'm going to give up my armor, I'm going to give up my belt, I'm going to give up my shield. I'm going to give you everything that distinguishes me from the average Joe Joe. Because your belt, your armor was given to you by your father the king. All these things were granted to you. And Jonathan said, look, I'm going to bequeath all these things to you because I love you like I love myself. You see, if you have a friend, a true friend, and that friend is in need, and you got to think or hesitate 1 minute before you go to their rescue, either you are not their friend or they're not your friend. You see, Jonathan said, I don't care about all of this. I know what all of this represents. I know what my armor represents. I know what my bow represents. I know what my belt represents. But none of this matters to me because I'm knitted to you, because I love you like I love myself. That's an act of loyalty. Jonathan his loyalty was more to David than the heirship and the kingship. His loyalty. And when you find a person that you can be loyal to, Skylar and Rain, when you find a person that you can trust, when you find a person that you know, I can turn my back on this person, and don't be concerned, you've identified a friend. And more importantly, you have been a friend. And the loyalty that Jonathan shows to David, the loyalty is unparalleled. Look what it says about a friend in Proverbs 18 and 24. Some friends do not last, but some friends are more loyal than brothers. You see, Jonathan and David, although they were not biological brothers, their loyalty and commitment exceeded the loyalty and commitment of brothers. And so you and I As we travel down this road, one of the things that you have to look for is loyalty. You have to look for loyalty. But more than look for loyalty, you got to be willing to give loyalty. And in order to receive something, you got to be willing to give. See, we want things, but we don't want to give. You want loyalty. You want friendship, but you don't want to give it. Your friendship is conditional based on what this person does and what they don't do. Think about it. Stop and think about the times that you call a person a friend, and if that person didn't do something you wanted, they ain't my friend. They didn't give you something you think you needed. They ain't my friend. Think about that. So we have to be careful how we look at this. And why is it so important? Because what happens is that this relationship, this bond, keeps you together no matter what. That person becomes a champion in your life, and you become a champion in their life. Stop calling everybody your friend, because everybody ain't your friend.
Amen.
They got a whole bunch of people out there that you call them friend that mean you no good. They're going to laugh with you. They're going to drink with you. They're going to hang out with you. But when it comes time of putting anything on the line for you, they say, look for me.
Amen.
And that's what we see in Jonathan and David. They chose to be friends. They chose to be to love one another. They chose to come together. You see, friendship is a mutual coming together. When you come together and you're knitted, you stick together no matter what. That's a friend. See, when you're going through something, I was looking at Facebook yesterday, and a young man, I saw my cousin Joyce Facebook, and the guy was making 42 or something like that. And I looked at that picture on Facebook, and my mind went all the way back to a friend I had in high school. And I remember how tight he and I were. His name was Brian Lazard. This was his nephew. Brian got killed in a motorcycle accident. But if I could have called anybody a friend in my youth, it was Brian. Because Brian was the most handsome guy in school. Brian dressed the best. He wore the best clothes. He always had money. He came from a renowned family in a place called Marrero. And Brian reached out to me to be a friend, but he didn't have to. And when I saw that picture yesterday of his nephew, it just brought back so many memories and so many times that Brian said, hey man, I got it. Don't worry about it. I got it, bro. And why he befriended me, I can't tell you today. But when I saw that picture, all that came back, riding on the motorcycles and doing these things, all of that came back. And I wrote back on the Facebook, hey, you look just like your uncle with hair. Because I had to say something, because all of those emotions and all those feelings came back. And you got to understand that in high school, a lot of times you're isolated. A lot of times people don't want to be your friend. They want what you have. So when this guy, who's probably one of the most popular kids, befriended me, it touched my heart. And when I saw that picture, it sort of reminded me of that knit that was together. This guy used to come and seek me out to go hang out and play. So you think about those things and you get knitted together and you see a true friend. And even when people were like making fun of me, Brian would lift me up. You see, a true friend gonna lift you up, not gonna tear you down. If somebody's tearing you down consistently, they're not your friend. If somebody's making fun of you all the time, they're not your friend. If somebody's criticizing you all the time, they're not your friend, because friends don't do that. A friend will lift you up. A friend will bring you to a place of comfort. See, friends lift us up. They don't tear us down. They don't tear us down. And the difference is that when we see this knitted relationship between Jonathan and David, Jonathan was always trying to lift David up. Look at 1 Samuel 20, verse 41 to 40. I want you to see something. I want you to see what a friend does. Now remember, Saul's trying to kill him. David was on the hit list. Saul had put out a bounty on David's head. Saul wanted him dead. Here's the most popular person in the kingdom, the champion, and because the people liked Saul and loved David, Saul said, I'm going to kill him. And I'm going to spend all my energy and effort and all my time trying to kill him. As a matter of fact, I'm going to send all my spies. I'm going to send all my hitmen, Terminator. I'm going to send, that's the kind of people that were coming after David. And Saul said, I'm going to put all my resources, all my energy, all my time into killing him. But God knew what David needed. So God allowed the relationship between Jonathan and David to be bound, knitted together. Let me show you what I'm talking about. 1 Samuel 20 and 41. It says, when the lad was gone, David rose to the south and fell on his face to the ground and bowed 3 times, and they kissed each other, David and Saul, and they wept. But David wept the more. Jonathan said to David, watch this. Go in safety, as much as we have sworn to each other in the name of the Lord, saying, the Lord will be between me and you, and between my descendants and your descendants forever. Then they rose and departed while Jonathan went into the city. Now that's a beautiful story. Now remember what's happened. And I want you to understand that your father, the president of the United States, then put out the CIA, the FBI, the military, all kinds of spies, everything saying, I want that joker dead. What do you think of your likelihood of getting killed? Your son says, no. I'm his friend. Your son goes and warns him of the imminent attack. Now, you're the future king. You could even be labeled as a traitor. But in spite of all that you think you may lose, you step out and you go and you let that person know that you love them. Can you imagine that bond? Can you imagine that covenant? And can you even imagine asking yourself, is this something that I would do? Is this something that I would do? Would I give up the keys to the kingdom? Would I give up all the glory? Would I give up all the prestige? Would I give up this position because of a friendship? That's the essence of friendship. Friendships is that you encourage in spite of. You stand with in spite of. You are there in spite of, not because of. Look at 1 Samuel 23 and 14. I want you to see it. And that's why we're using Jonathan and David. I want you to understand what a friendship bond is. It's a covenant. It's something that you're willing to die for. It's something that you're willing to put everything on the line for. Stop calling people friends if you're not willing to put everything on the line for them. Stop calling people friends if you're not willing to die for them. Because you should love them the way you love yourself. And they should love you the way they love themselves. God so loved the world that he what? He gave him up. That's that covenant love relationship. Watch this. David stayed in the wilderness and strongholds and remained in his hillside of the countryside. And Saul sought him every day. Remember I told you about the CIA and FBI? You remember when they wanted bin Laden? Every day they went after him. And what happened? They got him. But God did not deliver him into his hands. Now David became aware that Saul had come to seek his life when David was in the wilderness of Zat at Haroshah. And Jonathan, Saul's son, watch this, arose and went to David. Now watch these words. What I want you to see, you got to understand the magnitude and significance of this. This boy was putting everything on the line. He could be labeled a traitor. He was the king of Paran. Excuse me. Everything his father was doing was setting up the kingdom for him. But watch what he does. He says, none of this matters. None of this is important because I am knitted. I am bound. I have intersected with David. And watch what he does. He says, watch this. He says, and encouraged him in God. Jonathan says, in spite of what my father believes, I'm going to encourage David. And I'm not just going to encourage him with my strength. I'm going to encourage him with the power of God. You see, when you have a friend, that friend is going to encourage you. That friend is going to be there for you. That friend is going to lift you up. That friend is going to do every and anything to help you become a better person because they want to be a better person. You remember I told you, you can't love anybody until you love yourself. And when you not fall in love with yourself, I got to keep saying that. Don't fall in love with yourself. You're in trouble if you do that. But love yourself. So when you love yourself, then you can truly give up yourself. Stop trying to give up yourself and you don't even love your own self. You don't even know who you are. So you're trying to find love in somebody else and you don't even love yourself. Jonathan was able to give up himself because he loved himself. He loved himself. Because what happens is that, and they became knitted together, and you know it says, iron sharpened iron. So when you have a real friendship, when you intersect, they're going to make you better, and you're going to make them better. And if that's not happening, you don't have a real friend. You can fool yourself if you choose to. Real friends help each other. Real friends lift each other. Real friends don't spend all their time criticizing everything about you. How you look, how you walk, how you talk, how you sing, how you dance. Everything about you is a criticism. Real friends don't do that. Real friends are not negative all the time. Everything that comes out of their mouth about you is negative. That's just tearing you down. Jonathan encouraged David in the Lord. See, a real friend is going to encourage you. A real friend's going to lift you up. If somebody's tearing you down, regardless of who or what they are, they're not your real friend. They're not your real friend. And that's why Proverbs 12 and 26 tell us we have to be careful who we choose as friends. Because they got a lot of wicked people out there that they're not your friend. Friends don't pull you down. Friends lift you up. Friends don't pull you down. Friends lift. If you're just always feeling bad about yourself because of somebody you call a friend, you leave that person alone. Because they're stealing your peace. They're stealing your joy. And who gave you peace and who gave you joy? Jesus. So why in the world you would let somebody take what God gave to you personally? That's stupid. I can't use another word for it. And let me tell you something. Pastor has been stupid. There are times in my life when I let this knucklehead say something off the wall that stole my peace and stole my joy. But I've gotten to the point in my life now where I say, hey, bro, that's you. Believe what you want to believe. Do what you want to do. Because if you were my friend, if we were knitted together, if we were intersected together, you'd be lifting me up, not tearing me down. Because I'll be sharpening you, and you'll be sharper than me. And see, at this time of the year, you're starting a new year. So let a lot of that baggage go. Realize that if they're not lifting you up, if they're tearing you down, then they're really not your friend. We have to start evaluating people. See, there's a difference between evaluating something and judging something. We get that mixed up. You're judging something most of the time, unless it's a spiritual judgment, you're condemning it. Ask yourself how many times you judge something that you uplifting. Most of the time, from a secular perspective, when we're judging things, we're condemning them. Think about that. When you evaluate something, you take variable A, variable B, and you say, this is what it equals. You see, there's nothing wrong with you and I evaluating our relationships. In 2017, you need to step back and evaluate these relationships that you're in. And ask yourself, am I a friend to this person? And is this person a friend to me? And I want to give you a little bit of criteria that God has given me to help me to evaluate those things. Number one, do they bring out the best in you or the worst in you? Ask yourself that question. Do they bring out the best in you or do they bring out the worst in you? Then you have the answer. Number two, am I better for being around them or am I worse for being around them? Very, very simple. Do they motivate me to do more? Now listen to this. Do they motivate me to do more or do they motivate me to do less? Do they motivate me to do more or do they motivate me to do less? Now that's clear. It's clear. It's precise. In 2017, you need to ask yourself, am I calling people friends who are acquaintances? Am I evaluating this relationship? Is there a loyalty? Is there a knitting? Is there a commitment? Is there a covenant here? Or am I deluding myself? Henry Ford once is recorded as saying, my best friend is the one who brings out the best in me. You see, if somebody's not bringing out the best in you, don't go around calling them friends. They're an acquaintance. Or they may be a companion. And there's nothing wrong with having acquaintances. There's nothing wrong with having companions. But be careful who you call a friend. And we got to make some concrete choices, because remember what it says in 1 Samuel 18:1? It says that Jonathan loved him as he loved himself. And you know what? From a biblical perspective, this appears to be the first time, the very first time, that Jonathan interfaces with David. After that fight with Goliath. But you remember, if you go a few chapters back, Jonathan got tired of Goliath calling out people. And Jonathan prayed. And he went and he said, look, I'm going to go do something about this. And even if I have to go by myself, I want you to pay close attention to this. Let's look at it. Go to 1 Samuel 14:6. I want you to see something. You see, Jonathan says, I'm tired of this. I'm tired of Goliath calling 40 days and 40 nights somebody come out, calling every whole Israel cowards. I tell you what, I'm going to go out there, I'm going to take care of him and do something myself. Now pay attention to that. Watch this. 1 Samuel 4:6. Watch what Jonathan says. After all that Goliath, 40 days and 40 nights, y'all cowards, come out here. Send somebody, Saul, you're a coward. The whole Israeli army is a coward. None of y'all want to fight me. I'll tell you what, if y'all come out there and fight me, whoever defeats me will be. If y'all win, all the Palestinians would become y'all slaves. If I win, y'all become my slaves. We're going to take y'all women. We're going to take y'all food. He was just taunting them. And Jonathan got tired of it. Look what he does. In 1 Samuel 14:6, come and let us cross over the garrison of these uncircumcised. Perhaps the Lord will work for us, for the Lord is not restrained to save by many or by few. So Jonathan says, look, God is a God of miracles. I'm going to take him on. I'm going to take this army on. That shows, what does that show you? That shows heart. Do you see that? That shows heart. What did David show? Heart and a trust in the Lord. You see, when you have faith and you trust in the Lord, anything could happen. So even though Jonathan didn't know David, as far as we can tell to that point, he knows the characteristics of David. And David knows the characteristics of Jonathan. So you have to know the characteristics and traits of people. But more importantly, you have to know your own characteristics and your own traits. That's when you can give up yourself. So these two young men were knitted together because they had certain traits, they had certain characteristics, they had courage. So they had a bond that was sealed in their hearts because of their characteristics and their traits. See, in your heart determines who and what you are. You can fake it all you want. But God knows your heart, and your heart knows your heart. And if you're a coward, your heart knows that you're a coward. If you lack faith, your heart knows that you lack faith. If you lack courage, your heart knows that you lack courage. See, everything comes from the heart. So there was a spiritual connection between these two hearts before there was a physical connection between these two persons. So the spiritual component of friendship is more important than the physical component of friendship. Of course, everybody wants to be hugged and kissed and cuddled and made to feel warm, but we get it from the wrong people oftentimes. There was a spiritual connection between these two lads before there was a physical connection. You want to have a friend? Find someone who trusts and believes in God and look internally at yourself and say to yourself, this is what's in me, this is what I'm looking for, and then you'll find a friend. And until you're willing to do that, you're not going to find a friend because you can't even be a friend to yourself. And you have to love yourself and you have to be a friend of yourself before you can knit and intersect with someone else. You want to intersect with people and you haven't even figured out who and what you are. And you wonder why you're miserable. And you wonder why you're on a roller coaster in all these different relationships. Because you don't even know who you are. So you're like a roller coaster going up and down, trying to figure out and turning around. You're all mixed up and confused because you don't know who you are. You can't give up yourself until you know who you are. You can give to you. So be careful who you bring in your company and say, this is my friend. You got to learn how to be a friend before you can receive a friend. You got to learn how to be a friend before you can receive a friend. And the secret to friendship, number one, those two boys had a heart for God. I can promise you this, if I can't promise you anything on this earth, if you put anybody or anything before your relationship with God, it will crumble. And you'll be disappointed. I'll say that again. If you put anybody or anything before your relationship with God, it will crumble and it will disappoint you. But if you put God first, and you come to know God, have a relationship with God, then you're going to come to know yourself. And then you're going to know the characteristics and traits that you're looking for in people. You're trying to fill an empty void based on worldly expectations. Can't do it. Those two boys were knitted together early on. The spirits were knitted together because they shared certain characteristics and certain features, and they loved themselves. And you can't love anybody until you can love yourself. Stop trying to love people until you love yourself. You can't love nobody until you love yourself. Think about that. Remember what we read. It says, Jonathan loved David like he loved himself. Get the essence of that. Jonathan loved David like he loved himself. He could give because he loved himself. He knew himself. He knew, look, I got to go out and do something. His heart compelled him. And it's the heart that binds friendship and love. Nothing else. In a relationship with Jesus Christ, that's the key components. And you have to be your own friend before you can be somebody else's friend. I'll say that again. You have to be your own friend before you can be somebody else's friend. It ain't going to happen. It's not going to happen. And that's why it's so important for you and me today to realize that to have a best friend, you got to be a best friend. To have a best friend, you got to be a best friend. You can't go around saying, I want to have a best friend if you don't want to be a best friend. That's an oxymoron. That's a challenge that can never last. See, if you want to develop a relationship with a friend, be a friend. First, figure out who and what you are. Identify those character traits that are important to you. Identify your essence. And then share that. And when you do that, you become a friend. And then you can receive a friend. So you got to become a friend. It never ceases me. People want to receive friends, but they don't become a friend. You want somebody to be something to you that you're not to them. That's crazy. That's self-centeredness. You know, I was reading a story when I was thinking about Brian. I think Pastor Williams and Brian's sister, good friends. They grew up together. Brian and I grew up together. And I was thinking about it, and I was looking at parallels, and I came across a story that I think I want to end with. Some of you may have heard me use the story before. I want to share it with you today. There once was this teenage boy. His name was Christopher Carr. He was walking home from school one day. And as he was walking, he had all of his books. Took all of his books out of his locker. And he was bringing his books home. And all of a sudden, the kids rushed him and knocked all of his books out of his hand. And everybody just started laughing at him. Everybody just started laughing at him. And one guy looked at him, and he asked himself this question, with all the parties and football games and everything that's going on, why would a person be bringing all of their books home? This kid asked himself that question. Why would a person be bringing all his books home? So Christopher walked over. He picked up this kid's books, and he gave them back to him. And when they hit the kid, his glasses went over here, his books went over there. He was totally embarrassed. So Christopher picked up the guy's books, and he started talking to him. He said, "What's your name?" The guy said, "My name is Kyle." And come to find out that they lived 2 streets apart. So Christopher started playing with the guy, doing things with him, inviting him to play football with him, and they became friends. They started to do things together. As a matter of fact, they became real good friends. This kid, Kyle, who was bringing all his books home, was a brilliant kid. But he didn't have any friends. And he felt lonely, desolate, and isolated. So as Kyle started to interface with Chris started introducing other people. People started to like him. And Kyle ended up being the valedictorian of his class. And you know, the valedictorian usually gives a speech. And I want to just share with you what Kyla said in that message, and it's so important. And it sort of solidifies what Jonathan and David had, and I want you to see it. And this is what he wrote. He said, graduation is the time to thank those who help you make it through the tough years. Your parents, your teachers, your siblings, maybe a coach, but mostly your friends. He said, I'm here to tell all of you that being a friend to someone is the best gift that you can give them. Being a friend to someone is the best gift that you can give them. And he says, I'm going to tell you why. And he said, that day that I was going home, when I took all my books out of the locker, he said, on that day I had decided to kill myself. I decided to kill myself because nobody wanted to be my friend. He said that little touch, the little sincere outreach that was given to me by my friend Chris saved my life. Because the only reason why I took my books out of the locker, because I didn't want to put pressure on my mom to be embarrassed to come and get my books. He says, so what I want to leave everybody here with today is that you never know where a person is at. He said, you never know what they're feeling. He said, you never know what's going on in their life. He said, so if you could ever reach out and be a friend to someone, that's the greatest thing that you can do. And what I want to leave you with this morning is simply this, Tarek, that being a friend is more important than receiving a friend. And the greatest friend that you can have in this world is Jesus Christ. And once you make Jesus Christ the head of your life, he becomes your friend for life. And once Jesus is your friend for life, when Jesus is truly your friend for life, there's nothing else to worry about. Because you would have realized that a friendship is based upon unconditional love, loyalty, and commitment. A friendship is based upon unconditional love, loyalty, and commitment. And once you know these characteristics, and you know these traits, and they become you, now you can be a friend to receive a friend. Do you embrace that message? Thanks for being with us today. We want to remind you, if you need intercessory prayer, Bethesda's House of Prayer Prayer Ministry does its intercessory prayer every Friday at 12 p.m. We encourage you to participate. You can dial in at 1-563-999-1808. Join us and be filled by the Holy Spirit.